What did medieval death row inmates face before their execution? Hey guys, tonight we plunge into the grim shadows of a medieval dungeon where the air is thick with despair and the clank of chains echoes off damp stone walls. You're a death row inmate in the year 1350, and trust me, you probably won't survive this night without wishing for a time machine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always wild to see who's joining us from across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awake with a jolt, your body aching against a floor that's more mud than stone. The darkness is so thick it feels like it's pressing against your chest, and the only light comes from a flickering torch somewhere beyond the iron bars. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a pile of straw that's been rotting since the last king's coronation. It's crawling with fleas, each bite a tiny reminder that you're not alone in this misery. The air smells like a mix of mold, sweat, and something you hope isn't human waste. But deep down, you know it probably is. You're in a medieval dungeon, sentenced to die, and this is just the start of your final hours. The mainstream fact here is that medieval dungeons were often located beneath castles or town halls, designed to hold prisoners awaiting trial or execution. These cells were cramped, poorly ventilated, and deliberately inhumane to break the spirit of the condemned. A quirky tidbit, some dungeons had oubliettes, tiny pits where prisoners were literally forgotten, left to starve in darkness. Historians still argue whether these were common or just exaggerated tales to scare the masses. Either way, you're not in one of those yet. Your cell is a standard affair, about 6 feet by 8, with walls slick from centuries of damp. There's no window, no breeze, just the oppressive weight of stone and silence. You try to stretch, but your joints creak like an old cartwheel. You're maybe 25, but in medieval terms, that's practically ancient. Your clothes are a tattered rag that might have been a tunic once, now stiff with grime and smelling like a wet dog left out in the rain. You wonder how you ended up here, maybe a stolen loaf, a whispered heresy, or just bad luck. The truth is, justice in the Middle Ages is less about evidence and more about who's got the loudest mob or the fattest purse. You hear a distant scream, and your stomach twists. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what's lurking in this cell with you. For now, you're just trying to remember what sunlight feels like. The straw beneath you rustles, and not because you moved. Rats, big ones, with eyes that glint like tiny coins in the torchlight. They're not shy, scampering over your legs like you're part of the furniture. You swat at one, but it just hisses and darts into the shadows. These aren't your average kitchen pests. They're dungeon veterans, fat from nibbling on whatever or whoever didn't make it out. You'd scream, but your throat's too dry, and besides, no one's coming to help. The guards are probably betting on how long you'll last before you start talking to the walls. Spoiler, it won't be long. You notice a wooden bucket in the corner, its contents announcing themselves before you even look. That's your toilet, and it's been shared by every soul who's passed through this cell. The smell is biblical, like something God forgot to smite. You try to breathe through your mouth, but that just makes you taste the air, which is somehow worse. Don't skip the next part, because it gets even grimmer. Your hands fumble across the floor, searching for anything: a scrap of bread, a loose stone, anything to distract you. Instead, you find a carving scratched into the wall. God sees all. Great. Even the Almighty's watching your misery unfold. The cold seeps into your bones, making your teeth chatter. Medieval dungeons weren't built for comfort. They were meant to punish before the real punishment began. You pull your knees to your chest, trying to conserve what little warmth you have. The straw offers no insulation, Just more opportunities for fleas to throw a party on your skin. You're already itching like you've rolled in a nettle patch, and scratching only makes it worse. Somewhere nearby, water drips a slow, maddening rhythm that's somehow louder than your own heartbeat. You wonder if it's drinkable, then decide you'd rather not find out. Your mind drifts to the stories you've heard about what comes next. The trial, the torture, the scaffold. You've seen executions in the town square, the crowds cheering like it's a festival. Now, it's your turn, and the thought makes your stomach churn like you've swallowed spoiled ale. In a moment, you'll see why this cell is just the beginning. For now, you close your eyes, pretending you're anywhere else, a sunny field, a warm tavern, anywhere but here. But the rats don't care about your daydreams, and neither does the guard whose boots you hear clomping closer. The heavy tread of boots stops outside your cell, but the darkness doesn't budge, and neither does the stench that's now your unwanted roommate. You're curled in the straw, trying to ignore the rats nibbling at the edges of your sanity, when the air shifts a sour, unwashed breeze that could only mean one thing: you're not alone anymore. The dungeon smell is a beast of its own, a mix of rotting straw, human despair, and that bucket in the corner that's starting to feel like a personal insult. Your nose begs for mercy, but mercy's not on the menu in 1350. You're a death row inmate, and this cell is just the opening act of your final hours. The mainstream fact is that medieval dungeons were rarely cleaned, with waste buckets often left to overflow, creating a breeding ground for disease. Typhus and dysentery were common among prisoners, spread by fleas and filthy conditions. A quirky tidbit: some inmates believed the stench itself was punishment, a divine curse for their sins, and priests occasionally sprinkled holy water to purify the air spoiler. It didn't work. Historians still argue whether dungeon conditions were deliberately worsened to hasten confessions or just neglected due to sheer apathy. Either way, you're breathing proof that hygiene isn't a priority here. You press yourself against the wall, the cold stone biting through your ragged tunic. The smell clings to everything: your skin, your hair, even your thoughts. It's like the dungeon's trying to choke you before the executioner gets his chance. You gag, covering your mouth with a hand that's already crusted with grime. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this stench hides. For now, you're just praying for a breeze, but the only air movement comes from your own shallow breaths. The bucket's contents seem to pulse with a life of their own, and you swear you hear something splash inside. Nope, not looking. You try to focus on something else, anything else. The wall's damp surface feels like it's sweating, and you trace a finger over the carvings left by past inmates' names. Prayers, a crude sketch of a noose that makes your stomach lurch. You wonder who they were, what they did: theft, heresy, or just crossed the wrong lord in medieval Europe. Justice is a coin toss, and you're pretty sure you got the losing side. The smell creeps back into your awareness, like a guest who won't leave. It's not just waste. There's a metallic tang, maybe blood, and a sickly sweetness that could be decay. You'd rather not guess. Don't skip the next part, because it gets even worse. Your eyes adjust to the dimness, and you spot a corner where the straw is matted, stained dark with something you hope is just mud. But the smell tells a different story. This cell has seen death, and not the quick kind. You pull your knees tighter, trying to shrink into yourself. The rats don't care about your panic. One scurries across your foot, bold as a tax collector. You kick it away, and it squeaks, disappearing into the shadows. You're starting to think they're the real wardens here. The torchlight from the corridor flickers, casting jagged shadows that dance like demons on the walls. You hear a low moan from another cell, followed by a cough that sounds like it's tearing someone apart. Disease is as much an executioner as the axe. And you're breathing the same air as that poor soul. Your throat itches, and you wonder if it's just fear or something worse taking root. Medieval medicine isn't exactly a comfort leeches, and prayers don't cure much. You touch your forehead, half expecting a fever, but it's just cold sweat, small mercies, for now. In a few minutes, a strange truth emerges about this cell. The smell isn't just a byproduct, it's a weapon. The guards know it breaks you, makes you desperate enough to confess to anything just for a gulp of fresh air. You've heard stories of prisoners begging for the scaffold, not because they're guilty, but because they can't stand another night in this pit. You're not there yet, but the thought creeps in like damp through the walls. You try to hum a tune, something from the village fairs, but the stench chokes the melody before it starts. Your fingers dig into the straw, searching for distraction, and you find a small bone rat, human. You drop it like it's cursed, your heart pounding. The dungeon's not just holding you, it's testing you, seeing how much you can take before you crack. You close your eyes, picturing the fields outside your village, the smell of fresh bread, anything but this. But the dungeon doesn't let you escape, not even in your mind. The stench wraps around you like a shroud, and you realize it's not just the cell, it's the weight of what's coming. The guards, the trial, the crowd. You're not just fighting the smell, you're fighting to hold onto hope. A key rattles in the distance, and your breath catches. Someone's coming, and in this place, that's rarely good news. You strain to listen, but all you hear is the drip of water and the skitter of rats. The smell seems to thicken, as if it knows you're about to face something worse. You're not ready, but ready or not, the medieval world doesn't wait. You huddle closer to the wall, the carvings under your fingers, a grim reminder you're not the first, and you won't be the last. The stench of the dungeon clings to you like a second skin, but now a new sound cuts through the dripping water, and rat skitter a low, mocking laugh that makes your blood run colder than the stone beneath you. You're still huddled against the wall, the carvings of past inmates under your fingers. When the iron bars rattle, a guard looms in the torchlight, his silhouette broad and menacing, his breath reeking of sour ale. You're a death row inmate in 1350, and the guards aren't here to make your final hours pleasant. They're here to play games, and you're the unwilling pawn. The mainstream fact is that medieval prison guards were often poorly paid and corrupt, supplementing their wages with bribes or by tormenting prisoners for amusement. Many were local men with minimal training, wielding power over inmates with brutal impunity. A quirky tidbit, some guards ran side hustles, selling prisoners extra food or a better cell. Think moldy bread for a silver coin, or a slightly less filthy corner for your last night. Historians still argue whether guards acted out of sadism or just boredom, but either way, you're about to find out firsthand. The guard's eyes glint as he leans against the bars, a rusty sword dangling at his hip, still breathing. He sneers, kicking the bars for emphasis. The clang echoes, and you flinch, which only makes him grin wider. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what he's got planned. Your heart pounds, but you keep still, knowing any reaction fuels their fun. He's not alone. Another guard, skinnier but no less cruel, lurks behind, chewing something that smells worse than the bucket in your cell. They're a matched set, like wolves circling a wounded deer. You try to shrink into the shadows, but there's nowhere to hide. The first guard, let's call him Gruff for that gravelly voice, pulls a small knife from his belt and starts picking at his nails, casually menacing. Heard you stole a pig, he says, though you're pretty sure your crime was different. Maybe a whispered curse against the Lord, maybe nothing at all. Truth doesn't matter here. The charge is just an excuse. Don't skip the next part, because it gets nastier. Gruff steps closer, the torchlight catching the grease on his leather jerkin. He's testing you, waiting for you to beg or cry. The skinny one, Twitch, pipes up. Bet he won't last till dawn. They laugh, and you realize they're betting on you like you're a cockfight rooster. Medieval prisons weren't just holding cells, they were stages for cruelty, and guards were the directors. You notice Gruff's knife isn't just for show, it's notched, stained, and you don't want to know with what. He twirls it, humming a tune that's disturbingly cheerful, like he's about to carve a Sunday roast. Your stomach twists, and not just from hunger. In a moment, you'll see why these guards are feared. You remember stories from the village prisoners slipping on wet stones, or forgetting to eat for days. Guards could make your last hours hell or slightly less hell, depending on their mood or your coin. You've got nothing to offer, not even a copper, so you're at their mercy. Twitch spits on the floor, narrowly missing your foot, and you wonder if that was intentional. Probably. He mutters something about the executioner needing practice, and your mouth goes dry. You try to speak, maybe to plead, but your voice is a croak, drowned by the dungeon's damp. Gruff notices and laughs, a sound like boots crunching gravel. Save it for the priest, he says, banging his sword against the bars again. The noise is deafening, and you cover your ears, which only makes them laugh harder. They're not just guarding you, they're breaking you, piece by piece. You think of the rats, how they're bolder than you feel right now. If you could borrow their nerve, you might stare Gruff down, but instead, you just breathe, shallow and quick. The guards start arguing over who gets to check you later, some vague threat that could mean a beating or worse. You catch words like stocks and hot iron, and your mind races. Medieval punishment wasn't just about death, it was about spectacle, and guards often got creative before the main event. You've heard of prisoners forced to carry their own noose or wear a sign confessing their crime. Can you guess what's coming next? Your hands tremble, and you hide them in your tunic, not wanting to give Twitch the satisfaction of seeing your fear. The torchlight dims as Gruff adjusts it, casting the cell into deeper shadow. You're left with their voices, plotting your misery like it's a tavern game. You wonder if every inmate gets this treatment or if you're just unlucky. Probably both. The straw beneath you feels wetter now, and you don't want to know why. You focus on breathing, counting each inhale to stay calm. But the guard's laughter keeps pulling you back. They're not done with you, not by a long shot. As they turn to leave, Gruff tosses a crust of bread through the bars. It lands in the muck, and the rats pounce before you can move. Enjoy your feast, he says, and they're gone, their boots fading down the corridor. You're alone again, but the fear they brought lingers, heavier than the dungeon's stench. You stare at the bread, now rat property, and realize this is just the start. The guards are warming up, and you're the main act in their twisted show. The guards' laughter fades, leaving you alone with the dungeon's damp and the rats that claimed your bread. You're pressed against the slimy wall, the carvings of doomed souls under your fingertips, each scratch a reminder of your own fate. You're a death row inmate in 1350, and the crime that landed you here, real or invented, is the chain dragging you toward the scaffold. The air feels heavier now, as if the cell itself knows what's coming. You try to piece together how you ended up in this pit, but the truth is as murky as the puddle at your feet. The mainstream fact is that medieval justice systems were often arbitrary, with crimes like theft, heresy, or even witchcraft carrying the death penalty, especially for commoners. Courts relied heavily on confessions, coerced or not, rather than evidence. A quirky tidbit: some towns accused animals of crimes. Pigs were famously executed for stealing crops, complete with trials and nooses. Historians still argue whether such cases were symbolic or just medieval absurdity run amok. For you, though, the crime is personal, and it's shaping every miserable moment left. You shift in the straw, wincing as a flea bites your ankle. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what your crime means for your fate. The guards mentioned a pig, but you're pretty sure that's not it. Maybe you whispered something against the local lord, called his tax collector a thief in a tavern. Perhaps. Or maybe you were caught with a forbidden book, its Latin pages branding you a heretic. The details blur, but the sentence doesn't death. And soon, you remember the village gossip, how one wrong word could turn a neighbor into an accuser faster than you can say hangman's knot. Don't skip the next part, because it gets darker. Your mind replays the moment you were seized. Rough hands dragged you from your hut, the crowd jeering as if you'd murdered the king himself. Medieval justice didn't bother with nuance. Guilt was often decided by who shouted loudest. If you're a peasant, like most, your crime could be as simple as stealing bread to feed your kids. If you're lucky, it's a straightforward charge: treason. Say, for siding with the wrong lord in a feud. That's a quick beheading, if the executioner's sober, but if it's witchcraft, you're in for a show. Witches were drowned, burned, or stoned. Often after a public confession beaten out of them. You don't feel particularly magical, but that won't stop the mob from seeing a devil in your eyes. You try to recall the trial, if you can call it that. It was more a shouting match in the town hall, with a judge who looked like he'd rather be at the tavern. Witnesses: your neighbor who never liked you, a merchant you owe money to piled on accusations like logs on a fire, evidence a bad dream someone had, or a cow that stopped giving milk. Good enough for a noose. You wanted to scream your innocence, but the judge's yawn told you it wouldn't matter. Medieval courts were less about truth and more about keeping the peasants in line. Can you guess what's coming next? The crime, whatever it is, doesn't just dictate your death. It shapes how you'll spend your final hours. If it's theft, you might lose a hand before the rope double punishment, medieval style. If it's treason, expect a traitor's death, hanged, drawn, and quartered. Though they might skip the quartering if the crowd's feeling generous. You shudder, hoping it's just a rope. You've seen men beg for a quicker end, their pleas drowned by cheers. You're not sure you've got the stomach to beg, but you're not sure you don't either. The straw rustles, and you swat at another rat. Its boldness a reminder of your powerlessness. You wonder if your family knows you're here. Are they ashamed, or are they pleading for you? Probably not. Association with a condemned soul could taint them, too. You picture your sister, her face pale as she watched you dragged away. Medieval society didn't just punish the guilty, it punished their kin with shame and suspicion. You hope she's keeping her head down, but hope feels like a luxury you can't afford. A distant clang snaps you back, the guards again, or something worse. You strain to listen, but the dungeon sounds drips, scratches, a faint moan swallow everything else. Your crime, whatever it was, is a brand now, burned into your fate. You try to convince yourself it's a mistake, that someone will burst in with a pardon, but the cell's silence laughs at that thought. You're not getting out, not unless it's to the scaffold. The weight of your sentence presses harder than the stone walls, and you realize the crime isn't just what got you here, it's what's keeping you awake, dreading what's next. The weight of your crime, real or fabricated, sits heavy in your chest, but the dungeon's damp chill doesn't let you dwell on it for long. You're still curled in the straw, the rat's bolder now, as a new sound creeps through the bars, a low, guttural chant, like a prayer gone sour. You're a death row inmate in 1350, and the medieval world has one last test before the scaffold, a trial by ordeal, a brutal ritual to prove your innocence or seal your doom. The air feels tighter, as if the cell knows you're about to face something worse than the guard's taunts or the stench. The mainstream fact is that trial by ordeal was a common judicial practice in medieval Europe until the 13th century, though it lingered in some regions into the 14th. Accused individuals faced physical tests like plunging hands into boiling water or carrying hot irons to show divine judgment of their guilt or innocence. A quirky tidbit: in some villages, ordeal by bread involved swallowing a consecrated piece without choking if you gagged. God was calling you out. Historians still argue whether these trials were genuinely believed to reveal truth or were just tools to intimidate the accused into confessing. For you, the ordeal is no debate. It's a nightmare about to unfold. You press against the slimy wall, your heart thumping like a war drum. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this trial demands. The chanting grows louder, and you catch glimpses of movement beyond the bars, a robed figure, maybe a priest, and the glint of metal. The guards, gruff and twitch from earlier, are back, their smirks visible in the torchlight. They're not here to chat this time. They're dragging you to the ordeal. Gruff unlocks the cell, the iron screeching like a banshee, and yanks you to your feet. Your legs wobble, weak from hunger and fear, but Twitch shoves you forward, his bony hand digging into your shoulder. Don't skip the next part, because it gets gruesome. You stumble down a narrow corridor, the walls dripping with something you hope is just water. The chant is clearer now, a Latin prayer you don't understand, but the tone says judgment, not mercy. You're led to a stone chamber, smaller than your cell, but no less grim. In the center, a cauldron bubbles over a fire, the steam rising like ghosts. A crowd of onlookers, local officials, a stern-faced priest, and a few gawkers watches you like you're a pig at market. The priest holds up a cross, muttering about divine will, but his eyes are cold, like he's already written you off. In a moment, you'll see why this test is feared. The ordeal they've chosen is boiling water. You're to plunge your hand into the cauldron, retrieve a stone from the bottom, and pray your skin doesn't melt. If it heals cleanly in 3 days, you're innocent. If not, you're guilty, and the scaffold awaits. Easy, right. Except the water's hissing like a dragon, and your hands already trembling. Gruff ties your other arm behind your back, muttering, "Don't drop it, or we'll try again." His breath smells like he's been chewing onions, and regret. You'd laugh if you weren't so terrified. The priest steps forward, splashing holy water that feels more like a taunt than a blessing. He explains the rules, but you barely hear over the blood roaring in your ears. The crowd's eyes bore into you, some curious, some hungry for a show. Medieval ordeals weren't just tests, they were theater, and you're the unlucky star. Can you guess what's coming next? You glance at the cauldron, the water bubbling so fiercely it spits onto the stone floor. You've seen burns before, village kids scalded by soup, their screams haunting the night. This is worse. You clench your jaw, trying to summon courage, but it's slipping faster than the straw in your cell. You remember hearing about other ordeals, walking on hot coals, holding a red-hot iron. Some said drowning was kinder sink. You're innocent. Float. You're a witch. Either way, the odds feel stacked against you. You wonder if anyone's ever passed this test, or if it's just a cruel game to make you confess. The priest asks if you'll admit guilt now. Save yourself the pain. You want to end this, but the words stick in your throat. You're not even sure what you're guilty of anymore. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about this ordeal. Gruff nudges you closer to the cauldron, the heat stinging your face like a slap. The crowd murmurs, betting on whether you'll scream or faint. You catch a woman's gaze, pity, maybe, or just boredom. You wish you could trade places. Let her face the steam and the stares. The priest raises his hand, signaling the start, and your stomach lurches. You flex your fingers, trying to steel yourself, but they feel like they belong to someone else. The water's surface ripples, mocking you with its calm beneath the boil. You think of your family, wondering if they'll hear about this or if they'll pretend you never existed. Medieval society didn't just kill the condemned, it erased them, leaving their kin to carry the shame. You want to shout your innocence, but the crowd would only laugh. The priest nods, and Gruff shoves you forward. Your hand hovers over the cauldron, the heat already blistering. You're not ready, but time's up. The ordeal begins, and all you can do is pray for a miracle, or at least a quick end. The cauldron steam burns your face, and the priest's chant fades as you pull your scalded hand from the boiling water. The stone clutched tight despite the agony. You're a death row inmate in 1350 and the trial by ordeal has left you trembling. But it's not over. Now, you're dragged from the chamber, your bandaged hand throbbing, toward a fate worse than pain, the bloodthirsty crowd waiting outside. Their roars echo through the stone corridors, growing louder with every step, like a storm about to break. You're not just facing death, you're the main act in a medieval spectacle, and the audience is starving for your suffering. The mainstream fact is that public executions in medieval Europe were major social events, drawing crowds from peasants to nobles, who saw them as entertainment, moral lessons, or both. Towns often halted work for hangings or beheadings, with markets and festivals springing up around the scaffold. A quirky tidbit, some crowds brought picnic baskets, munching on bread and cheese while watching the condemned meet their end think tailgating, but with more nooses. Historians still argue whether these gatherings strengthened community bonds or just fed a collective thirst for violence. For you, the crowd's cheers are a wall of noise, and you're about to step into their arena. You stumble as the guards, Gruff and Twitch, shove you through a heavy wooden door. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this mob demands. The daylight blinds you, a cruel contrast to the dungeon's gloom, and the smell of mud and unwashed bodies hits like a fist. You're in the town square, a sea of faces stretching before you, men with weathered caps, women clutching children, even a few dogs barking at the chaos. The scaffold looms ahead, its wooden frame creaking under the weight of past executions. Your heart hammers, and your burned hand pulses, the bandage already soaked with something you hope isn't pus. Don't skip the next part, because it gets wilder. The crowd's not just watching, they're participating. Someone throws a rotten apple, missing your head by inches, and the laughter ripples like a wave. A child points, shouting. There's the thief, though you're still not sure that's your crime. Medieval crowds didn't need facts, they needed a villain, and you're it. You spot a merchant selling pies, his stall thriving amid the frenzy, and you'd laugh at the absurdity if your throat weren't so dry. Gruff yanks your arm, forcing you to keep moving, while Twitch eggs on the crowd, shouting, "Give him a cheer, eh?" In a moment, you'll see why they're so bloodthirsty. The square's packed, the air thick with sweat and anticipation. You notice makeshift stands where wealthier folks sit, their fine cloaks a stark contrast to the peasants' rags. They're here for the show, same as the rest, but with better seats. The scaffold's shadow falls over you, and you glimpse the noose swaying in the breeze, a simple rope, but it might as well be a dragon. The crowd's roars spike as you're pushed closer, their voices a mix of jeers and chants. You catch words like heretic and justice, but it's all noise now. You try to block them out, focusing on the cobblestones under your bare feet, sharp and cold. Can you guess what's coming next? You've seen executions before. Who hasn't? The village turned out for a poacher last year, his neck snapping as the crowd cheered like it was a saint's feast. Now, you're the one they're here to see, and the realization makes your legs buckle. Gruff catches you, not out of kindness, but because he wants you on that scaffold, not collapsing early. Keep moving, he growls, his breath hot against your ear. You'd rather face the rats again than this sea of eyes. The crowd's energy is a living thing, feeding off your fear. You spot a woman waving a wooden cross, screaming about divine wrath, while a drunk man bets his friend you'll cry before the end. Medieval executions weren't just punishments, they were morality plays. With you cast as the sinner, you wonder if they'll tell stories about you later. Probably not. You're just another body to them, another lesson in obedience. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this mob. For now, you're trying not to trip as Twitch shoves you toward the scaffold steps, each one creaking like a warning. You scan the faces, searching for someone familiar, a friend, a family member, but they're all strangers. Or maybe they're pretending to be. Condemned souls don't get visitors. Your kin are likely hiding, avoiding the stain of your shame. You remember your sister's pale face when you were arrested, and you hope she's safe from this madness. The crowd doesn't care about your story. They want blood, and they'll get it, one way or another. A boy throws a stone, grazing your shoulder, and the sting is nothing compared to the dread pooling in your gut. As you reach the scaffold's edge, the executioner's silhouette looms, his hood a black void where a face should be. The crowd's roars peak, a thunderclap of anticipation, and you realize they're not just here for justice, they're here for a thrill. You're not a person anymore. You're a spectacle, a fleeting distraction from their own hard lives. The noose swings gently, waiting, and you wonder if you'll have the strength to face it. The guards step back, their job done for now, and you're left alone with the crowd's hunger and the scaffold's promise. The crowd's roars pulse through the town square, their jeers a relentless tide, but a new figure steps into the chaos, silencing the mob with a raised hand. You're a death row inmate in 1350, standing at the scaffold's edge, the noose swaying like a grim pendulum. Your burned hand throbs from the trial by ordeal, and now a priest approaches, his black robes flapping in the breeze, carrying a cross and a weightier purpose. He's here to offer last rites, a final chance for your soul before the rope claims your body. The air grows still, heavy with the scent of mud and the crowd's sweaty anticipation. The mainstream fact is that last rites, or the sacrament of extreme unction, were a standard ritual for condemned prisoners in medieval Europe. Administered to cleanse sins and prepare the soul for judgment, priests were central to executions, ensuring spiritual order amid the spectacle. A quirky tidbit, some priests charge families for premium rites, like extra prayers or a better spot in heaven's queue. Capitalism even found a way into salvation. Historians still argue whether these rites were genuine acts of mercy or just another way to control the condemned. For you, the priest's presence is both a lifeline and a reminder of what's coming. You stand frozen, the scaffold's wood creaking under your bare feet. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this priest demands. The crowd parts as he climbs the steps, his face gaunt, eyes like coals under a heavy brow. He smells of incense as an old parchment, a stark contrast to the dungeon's reek. Gruff and Twitch, the guards, linger nearby, their smirks gone, replaced by a grudging respect or maybe fear. The priest holds up his cross, muttering Latin that sounds more like a curse than a prayer. You catch the word peccator sinner and your stomach twists. Don't skip the next part, because it gets heavier. He leans close, his breath warm against your ear, and asks if you're ready to confess. Confession is your last shot at divine forgiveness, but it's also a public act, and the crowd's listening. You're not sure what to say, your crime's a blur. Maybe theft, maybe heresy, maybe just bad luck. The priest's eyes bore into you, unyielding, like he's peering into your soul's dusty corners. You've seen men confess to anything under this pressure, hoping for a lighter eternity, but you're not sure you believe in his promises of paradise. In a moment, you'll see why his words sting. He begins the rite, anointing your forehead with oil that smells faintly of olives and despair. His fingers are cold, deliberate, tracing a cross that feels more like a brand. He recites prayers, his voice a low drone, and you're supposed to feel cleansed, but all you feel is the noose's shadow. The crowd's quiet now, some kneeling, others clutching rosaries, as if your soul's fate matters to them. You spot a woman, weeping, but it's not for you. She's just caught up in the drama. Medieval last rites weren't private. They were theater, with you as the penitent star. Can you guess what's coming next? The priest asks again for your confession, louder this time, so the crowd can hear. You hesitate, your throat dry as the straw in your cell. Confess, and you'll be mocked, but maybe saved in the afterlife. Stay silent, and you risk damnation, or so he says. You've heard tales of priests twisting confessions to justify the execution, making the crowd feel righteous. Your mind flashes to the dungeon, the rats, the boiling water. You're tired, so tired, and part of you wants to spill everything just to be done. But what if there's nothing to confess? The priest steps back, raising his cross to the sky, and the crowd murmurs, some praying, some jeering. He's not just saving your soul, he's reminding everyone that the church holds the keys to heaven, even for a wretch like you. You notice his robe's hem is frayed, a small human detail that makes him less godly, more like a man with a job. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about his role. For now, he's chanting again, and you're supposed to kneel, but your legs won't move. The scaffold's wood digs into your feet, and the noose seems to inch closer, as if impatient. You think of your family, wondering if they'll pray for you after this. Medieval society didn't just execute the guilty, it judged their kin, branding them with shame. You hope your sister's keeping her distance, safe from the crowd's spite. The priest's voice rises, calling on God to judge you, and you wonder if he believes his own words, or if this is just another day at work. The oil on your forehead feels sticky, a mark you can't wipe away. You're not sure if it's salvation or a sentence. The crowd stirs, their silence breaking as the priest finishes. He nods to Gruff, who grabs your arm, ready to move you along. The rite's done, but you don't feel saved, just exposed, like a wound laid bare. The noose waits, the executioner's shadow looms, and the crowd's eyes burn into you. You're not just a sinner now, you're a soul on trial, and the priest's prayers are the last thing tying you to hope. But hope, like the dungeon's air, is thin and hard to hold. The priest's oil lingers on your forehead, a sticky reminder of his prayers, but the crowd's murmurs swell again as you're yanked from the scaffold's edge. You're a death row inmate in 1350, your hands still throbbing from the boiling water of the ordeal. And now the guards, Gruff and Twitch, are dragging you through the town square. This is no quiet walk. It's a public march to your doom. A parade designed to shame you before the final act. The cobblestones bite your bare feet, and the noose's shadow feels like it's trailing you. Even though you're not at the execution site yet, the air smells of sweat, ale, and the faint tang of fear yours. Mostly. The mainstream fact is that medieval executions often included a public procession where the condemned were paraded through streets to display their guilt and deter others. These marches were ritualized, with guards, clergy, and crowds playing roles in the spectacle. A quirky tidbit in some towns, prisoners were forced to wear paper crowns or carry signs naming their crimes, turning shame into a costume party from hell. Historians still argue whether these processions were meant to reinforce social order or simply satisfy the crowd's thirst for drama. For you, the march is a gauntlet, and every step feels like a countdown. Gruff's grip on your arm is iron tight, his knuckles scarred from years of work. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this crowd throws at you. The square is a blur of faces, angry, gleeful, or just bored, pressed close enough that you feel their breath. A woman spits, her aim true, and the warm glob lands on your cheek. You flinch, but Twitch laughs, shoving you forward. "Keep moving, pig stealer," he says, though you're still not sure that's your crime. The crowd picks up the chant, "Thief, thief," and you wonder if they even know who you are. Don't skip the next part, because it gets messier. The street narrows, lined with shops and huts, their owners leaning out to jeer. A rotten cabbage sails past, splattering on the stones, and the crowd cheers like it's a tournament. You duck, but not fast enough. A stale bread crust clips your shoulder, hard as a rock. Medieval processions weren't just walks, they were open season on the condemned. You spot a child, no older than 6, tossing pebbles with glee, his mother egging him on. You'd think it's personal, but it's not. You're just the day's entertainment, a moving target for their frustrations. In a moment, you'll see why this march is torture. The guards don't bother shielding you. They're enjoying the show. Gruff dodges a flying turnip, chuckling, while Twitch shouts, "Aim better, you lot." You're not sure what's worse, the crowd's aim or their enthusiasm. Your burned hand screams with every jolt, the bandage slipping, exposing raw skin that stings in the open air. You try to focus on the ground, counting cobblestones to block out the noise, but a man's voice cuts through "Burn the heretic." You're not a heretic. Are you? Doesn't matter. The crowd's decided your story. Can you guess what's coming next? You pass a tavern, its doors swinging open to spill out drunks who join the parade. Their slurred insults oddly creative. One calls you a goat-cursed knave, and you'd laugh if your heart weren't pounding. The street widens into another square, and you see the execution site ahead, a wooden platform, the noose dangling like a grim welcome sign. Your legs falter, but Gruff yanks you upright, muttering, "No fainting yet." The crowd's thicker here, packed shoulder to shoulder, some climbing carts for a better view. You're the main event, and they're not missing a second. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this parade. Your tunic, already a rag, is torn further by a clawing hand, someone wanting a souvenir. Maybe you pull away, but the crowd presses closer, their shouts a wall of sound. You spot a woman with a basket, selling apples to throw, her business booming. Medieval justice wasn't just about punishment, it was commerce, too. You're not just a criminal, you're a boost to the local economy. The thought's almost funny, but another projectile, a muddy shoe, grazes your ear, killing any humor. You think of the dungeon, how its stench was almost preferable to this. At least the rats didn't chant. You wonder if your family's out there, hidden in the mob, or if they fled to avoid the shame. Medieval society didn't just condemn you, it marked your kin, their lives tainted by your supposed crime. You hope your sister's safe, but the crowd's faces blur into one angry mask. A priest trails behind, cross raised, his prayers drowned by jeers. He's not here for you. He's here to sanctify the spectacle, to make the mob feel righteous. The scaffold's closer now, its steps worn smooth by countless feet. You're not there yet, but the march is winding down, each step heavier than the last. If you leave now, you'll miss what happens at the end. The guards slow, letting the crowd savor the moment. A man shouts, "Confess, dog," and you want to scream that you don't even know your crime. But your voice is gone, swallowed by fear and the crowd's roar. The noose is waiting, and the march is just the prelude, a public shaming to strip you of everything but dread. The crowd's jeers chase you through the square. They're thrown apples and insults, bruising more than your skin. As you stumble closer to the execution site, you're a death row inmate in 1350. Your feet raw from the cobblestones, your burned hand screaming beneath its filthy bandage. The march has stripped you of dignity. But now the guards, gruff and twitch, halt you just short of the scaffold. Before the noose, there's another ordeal: torture. A grim prelude to ensure your suffering satisfies both crowd and justice. The air buzzes with anticipation, thick with the scent of mud, ale, and the crowd's eager sweat. The mainstream fact is that torture was a standard precursor to execution in medieval Europe, used to extract confessions, punish, or simply prolong the spectacle. Devices like the rack or thumbscrews were common, applied publicly to maximize deterrence. A quirky tidbit: some torturers were local craftsmen, doubling as carpenters or blacksmiths, their tools as likely to shape a horseshoe as to break a bone. Historians still argue whether torture was primarily judicial or a sadistic crowd pleaser. But for you, it's a reality you're about to face, and the crowd's hungry eyes aren't helping. Gruff shoves you toward a wooden platform. Not the scaffold, but a smaller stage, rigged with ropes and a metal brazier glowing ominously. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what they've planned. Your stomach lurches as Twitch ties your wrist to a post, his fingers quick and cruel. The crowd presses closer, their chants fading into a low, excited hum. You spot a man selling ale, his tray bobbing through the mob like a grim festival vendor. Your throat's dry as dust, but you'd rather kiss a rat than drink anything here. Don't skip the next part, because it gets brutal. A hooded figure steps onto the platform, not the executioner, but a torturer. His apron stained with things you don't want to name. He's holding a pair of iron tongs, their tips red hot from the brazier. The crowd cheers, and you realize they're not just here for your death. They want your pain first. The priest from the last rites lingers nearby, cross raised, muttering about penance, but his words feel hollow. You're not sure if he's praying for your soul or the crowd's entertainment. In a moment, you'll see why this hurts more than the noose. The torturer lifts the tongs, and you flinch, expecting them to sear your flesh. But he pauses, letting the crowd savor your fear. Medieval torture wasn't just physical, it was psychological, designed to break you before the final blow. You've heard of men confessing to crimes they didn't commit just to stop the pain. Your crime may be theft, maybe heresy is a blur, but you're not sure confessing will save you now. The tongs hover, their heat stinging your face like a warning. Can you guess what's coming next? The torturer speaks, his voice muffled by the hood, demanding a confession. The crowd leans in, eager for your words or your screams. You try to speak, but your voice is a rasp, drowned by the brazier's crackle. Gruff, standing nearby, laughs. He'll sing soon enough. You want to spit at him, but fear keeps your mouth shut. The torturer lowers the tongs, grazing your arm, and the pain is white hot, a starburst that makes you gasp. The crowd roars, and you hate how their cheers make you feel less than human. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this torment. Your mind races back to the dungeon, the rats, the boiling water. Each moment has been a step in this cruel dance, and torture is just the latest beat. You've heard of the rack-stretching bodies until joints pop, or the pair of anguish, a device too grim to describe in polite company. You're lucky. if you can call it that. They've chosen something simpler, but no less agonizing. The torturer grips your burned hand, unwrapping the bandage, and you bite your lip to keep from crying out. The raw skin looks like it belongs to someone else. You think of your sister, hoping she's not watching this. Medieval torture wasn't just about the condemned. It was a warning to everyone else. Your pain is a lesson step out of line, and this is what awaits. The crowd's faces blur some gawk. Some pray, some laugh like it's a tavern jest. You spot a boy eating an apple, unbothered, and you envy his indifference. If you leave now, you'll miss what this torture reveals. The torturer raises the tongs again, and you brace for the next burn, wondering if you'll have any fight left for the scaffold. The priest steps closer, urging repentance, but his words feel like a script. You're not sure if God's listening, or if this is all just for show. The tongs descend, and you clench your teeth, the pain swallowing your thoughts. The crowd's cheers are a distant roar, and you realize this isn't about justice, it's about power. The torturer, the guards, the priest, they're all playing their parts, and you're the prop. Your burned hand trembles, and you wonder how much more you can take before you break or before the noose takes the choice away. The torturer's tongs leave a searing mark on your arm. The pain, a white-hot scream that drowns out the crowd's cheers, but they step back, leaving you gasping on the torture platform. You're a death row inmate in 1350, your body trembling from the ordeal, the march, and the dungeon's relentless misery. Now, the crowd parts, and a new figure emerges from the shadows, the executioner, his hooded face a void of judgment, his presence silencing even the rowdiest drunk. You're inches from the scaffold, and this man, with his cold stare and grim tools, is the final gatekeeper between you and the noose. The air grows heavy, thick with the scent of burning coals and the crowd's fevered anticipation. Historians still argue whether executioners were despised for their work or secretly respected as agents of divine will. For you, his stare is all that matters, and it's colder than the dungeon stone. You're still tied to the post, your burned hand and fresh wounds throbbing in rhythm with your pulse. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what he carries. The executioner moves with deliberate slowness, his boots thudding on the platform. He's tall, broad, his leather apron stained with what could be blood or just years of grime. The crowd's hushed now, their earlier jeers replaced by a tense awe. Gruff and twitch, the guards stand back. Their usual smirks gone, they know this is his stage. The priest lingers nearby, cross raised, but even he seems smaller in the executioner's shadow. You wonder if he sleeps soundly, or if the faces of the condemned haunt him. Probably not. In a moment, you'll see why his calm terrifies you. He kneels, inspecting the scaffold's ropes, testing their strength with a tug that makes your stomach lurch. Every move is precise, practiced, like a carpenter measuring wood. You've heard stories executioners botching hangings, leaving men to strangle slowly, or missing the neck with an axe, turning death into a gruesome comedy. This one looks like he doesn't miss. The crowd watches, some whispering bets on how clean the kill will be. You'd rather not be the subject of their wagers, but choice isn't on the menu today. Can you guess what's coming next? The executioner stands, pulling a coiled rope from his sack, the noose, its fibers worn but strong, stained with the ghost of past executions. He loops it over the scaffold's beam, his movements almost gentle, like he's threading a needle. You try to swallow, but your throat's a dessert, and the sight of that rope makes your knees wobble. Gruff notices, chuckling, "Don't faint yet, lad." You want to snap back, but fear keeps your tongue still. The torturer's burns pulse, a reminder that pain is just the warm up. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this man. You think of the dungeon, the rats, the boiling water, the march each a step toward this moment. The executioner's calm is unnerving, a stark contrast to the crowd's frenzy. You wonder about his life. Does he have a family, a home, or is he as alone as you feel now? Medieval executioners were paradoxes, necessary but reviled, their hands stained so the towns could stay clean. You spot a small cross hanging from his belt, a quiet nod to faith, and it feels wrong, like a butcher praying over a slaughter. You glance at the crowd, their faces a blur of excitement and judgment. You're not a person to them anymore, just a story they'll tell over ale tonight. Your sister's face flashes in your mind, and you hope she's not here, not seeing you like this. Medieval executions didn't just end lives, they erased legacies, leaving families to carry the shame. If you leave now, you'll miss what his tools reveal. The executioner adjusts the noose, his fingers deft, and you realize he's not just preparing for you, he's performing, giving the crowd the show they paid for with their cheers. The priest mutters another prayer, but it's background noise now. The executioner's stare, or lack of one, is your world. He steps closer, checking the ropes binding your wrists, his touch cold but not cruel. You want to ask him something why he does this, if he ever spares anyone, but the words die in your throat. The crowd's murmurs rise, sensing the end is near. The noose waits, its shadow falling across your feet, and you know this man, this hooded specter, holds your final moments in his steady hands. The executioner's hooded gaze lingers, his steady hands tightening the ropes around your wrists as the noose sways above, a silent promise of what's to come. You're a death row inmate in 1350, standing on the creaking scaffold. The crowd's murmurs a low hum of anticipation. Your burned hand and tortured arm throb, but the real pain is the weight of the moment. This is it, the stage where your life ends as a public lesson. The mainstream fact is that medieval scaffolds were temporary structures, often erected in town squares for executions and dismantled afterward, designed to maximize visibility for the crowd. They were simple but sturdy, built to hold the condemned, the executioner, and sometimes a small entourage of clergy or officials. A quirky tidbit, some scaffolds were reused for market stalls after executions. The same wood hosting cabbages and nooses in the same week talk about recycling. Historians still argue whether scaffolds were meant to intimidate or simply accommodate the masses' thirst for spectacle. For you, this creaking platform is the end of the line, and every sound feels like a countdown. The priest's prayers drone on, a faint Latin hum, but they're no comfort. You're alone up here, or so it feels. Don't skip the next part, because it gets intense. The scaffold surface is scarred, stained with dark patches. You try not to think about blood, probably from those who stood here before. You notice a loose plank, wobbling under the executioner's weight, and your heart skips. A botched platform could mean a slow death, the rope slipping or the trapdoor jamming. You've heard tales of men strangling for minutes, the crowd cheering as they kicked. You prayed the scaffold solid, but prayer feels like tossing coins into a dry well. The crowd doesn't care about your comfort. They want a performance. In a moment, you'll see why this stage is cursed. The executioner adjusts a lever, and you realize there's a trapdoor beneath you, designed to drop when the time comes. Your stomach lurches, imagining the fall, the snap, or worse. No snap. The noose looms, its fibers frayed but unyielding, and you wonder how many necks it's claimed. The crowd's murmurs spike, some shouting for you to confess, others just yelling for blood. A woman waves a rosary, her lips moving in prayer, but her eyes are bright with excitement. Medieval executions were morality plays, and you're the villain they've come to see fall. Can you guess what's coming next? You try to steady your breathing, counting each inhale to keep from panicking, but the scaffold's creak is a constant reminder of what's ahead. You think back to the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, the march each a step to this moment. The executioner's hood hides his expression, but his hands never falter, looping the noose with a craftsman's care. You wonder if he feels anything regret, pride, or just boredom. He's the crowd's hero, the man who delivers justice, but to you, he's a specter, as cold as the stone that held you. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this platform. The crowd's energy shifts, growing restless as the executioner signals the priest to step back. You catch a glimpse of a child in the mob, perched on his father's shoulders, pointing at you like you're a fairground oddity. You want to scream that you're not what they think, a thief, a heretic, whatever, but your voice is gone, swallowed by fear and the crowd's roar. The scaffold feels like it's shrinking, the world narrowing to this splintered stage, the noose, and the man who'll end you. You think of your sister, hoping she's not here, not seeing you reduced to this. Medieval executions didn't just kill, they erased, leaving families to carry the stain of your shame. If you leave now, you'll miss what this scaffold demands. The executioner steps closer, his boots thudding, and you smell leather and iron on him, a working man's scent. He checks the trap door, stomping to test its give, and the crowd cheers, sensing the end is near. You want to look away, but there's nowhere to hide, not from the noose, the crowd, or the truth that this is your final stage. The priest raises his cross, his prayers louder now, as if God might actually listen. You're not sure you believe anymore. Not after the dungeon, the torture, the march. The executioner's hand rests on the lever, and your heart stops, waiting for the drop. But he pauses, letting the moment stretch, giving the crowd what they want, suspense. You're not just a condemned soul, you are the star of their twisted play, and the scaffold's your spotlight. The noose waits, and you know the curtain's about to fall. The scaffold's trapdoor creaks beneath you, the noose's shadow a constant threat, but the executioner's hand pauses on the lever, prolonging the crowd's anticipation. You're a death row inmate in 1350, your body aching from torture, your burned hand pulsing under its rag of a bandage. The crowd's cheers fade to a restless hum, their eyes fixed on you. But now you notice something different. Whispers ripple through the mob, sharper when they spot your tattered tunic and matted hair. You're not just any prisoner, you're a woman, and that changes the script. The medieval world has a unique brand of cruelty for female inmates, and you're about to feel its sting. The mainstream fact is that women in medieval Europe faced execution for crimes like witchcraft, adultery, or even petty theft, but their punishments often included extra layers of public shaming to reinforce gender norms. Female prisoners were stripped, paraded, or branded before death to maximize humiliation. A quirky tidbit: some towns shave women's heads or force them to wear scold's bridles, metal masks with tongue depressors to silence them, even in death. Historians still argue whether these added punishments were about moral control or just misogynistic spectacle. For you, the crowd's whispers are a knife, and their gaze cuts deeper than the torturer's tongs. You stand on the scaffold, the wind tugging at your torn tunic, exposing more skin than you'd like. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what they demand of you. The executioner's hooded face gives nothing away, but his hands hesitate, as if he's waiting for a signal. Gruff, the burly guard, mutters something to Twitch, who snickers, his eyes raking over you. The crowd's murmurs grow louder, some shouting. Witch or harlot labels you don't recognize but can't shake. Your crime, maybe stealing bread or whispering defiance, doesn't matter. As a woman, you're a symbol of sin, and they're here to see you broken. Don't skip the next part because it gets uglier. A woman in the crowd, her face twisted with scorn, hurls a clump of mud that splats against your chest. The mob laughs, and you flinch, the cold muck seeping into your tunic. Medieval women weren't just executed, they were degraded. Their bodies turned into lessons for others. You've heard of women stripped naked before the noose. Their shame a warning to stay virtuous. You pray it won't come to that. But the crowd's eyes hungry, judgmental suggest otherwise. The priest, still clutching his cross, looks away, as if your gender makes his prayers less urgent. In a moment, you'll see why your womanhood dooms you. Twitch steps forward, a rusty shears in hand, and your heart sinks. They're going to shave your head, a common ritual to mark female sinners, stripping you of dignity before death. The crowd cheers, eager for the show, and you want to scream, but your throat's too dry. Your hair, tangled and filthy, is all you have left of yourself, and they're taking it. Twitch grabs a handful, the blades glinting, and you jerk back, earning a slap from Gruff. Hold still, witch. He growls, and the word stings more than the blow. Can you guess what's coming next? The shears scrape your scalp, clumsy and painful, as clumps of hair fall to the scaffold. The crowd roars, some women shouting about cleansing the devil. You've seen this before a neighbor, accused of cursing a cow, shaved and burned. Her screams haunting the village. Now it's you, and the humiliation burns hotter than the torturer's tongs. You try to focus on the scaffold's wood, counting splinters to block out the noise. But a child's voice cuts through. Look at the witch's head. You're not a witch, but truth doesn't matter here. Thirst. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this shame. The executioner watches, silent, his hand still on the noose. You wonder if he pities you, or if he's just waiting for his turn. Medieval women faced extra punishment because they were seen as temptations. Their bodies a threat to order. Your crime, whatever it was, is secondary. Your womanhood is the real offense. The crowd's not just here for justice. They're here to see a woman humbled. You think of your sister, praying she's not watching, not learning this brutal lesson about what it means to be female in this world. If you leave now, you'll miss what this ritual reveals. Twitch finishes, tossing your hair into the crowd like a trophy, and hands reach to grab it, as if it's cursed or holy. The scaffold feels smaller now, the noose closer, and you're exposed, raw in every way. The priest mutters about repentance, but his words are for the crowd, not you. You're not a person anymore. You're a warning, a lesson carved in shame. The executioner steps forward, his boots thudding, and you realize the shaving was just the prelude. The real show the noose is next, and the crowd's ready for blood. You stand, head bare, the wind cold against your scalp, and try to hold on to some shred of defiance. You're not what they say a witch, a harlot, but their shouts drown your truth. The scaffold's creak is your only companion now, and you wonder if death will be kinder than this public stripping of yourself. The noose waits, and you know the crowd's not done with you yet. The cold wind bites your newly shaved scalp. The crowd's jeers a relentless tide as you stand exposed on the scaffold, the noose looming above. You're a death row inmate in 1350, a woman stripped of hair and dignity, your body aching from torture and the ordeal's burns. The mob's chants witch, harlot echo, but now a shift ripples through the square. A finely dressed figure steps forward, cloaked in velvet, and the crowd parts, their shouts softening to whispers. You're not the only kind of prisoner here. Nobles, with their wealth and titles, face a different path to the noose, and you're about to see how privilege plays out on this grim stage. The mainstream fact is that noble prisoners in medieval Europe often received preferential treatment before execution, such as better cells, private confessions, or even swifter deaths, reflecting the rigid class hierarchy. Beheading, seen as dignified, was typically reserved for the elite, while commoners faced hanging or worse. A quirky tidbit: some nobles paid executioners to ensure a clean strike. Think of it as bribing for a 5-star guillotine experience. Historians still argue whether this leniency was about maintaining social order or just appeasing powerful families. For you, a commoner, the noble's presence is a bitter reminder of your place in this brutal world. You squint against the daylight, your raw scalp stinging. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this noble escapes. The nobleman, let's call him Lord Fancy, for his embroidered cloak stands tall, flanked by guards who look more respectful than gruff and twitch. His hands are bound, but with silk cords, not the coarse rope cutting into your wrists. The crowd's not throwing mud at him. They're murmuring, some even bowing. You'd roll your eyes if you weren't so exhausted. The executioner, hooded and silent, adjusts the noose, but his movements seem less menacing toward the Lord, almost deferential. Don't skip the next part, because it gets unfair. Lord Fancy is escorted to a separate platform, higher than your rickety scaffold, with a velvet cushion seriously for his knees during prayers. You're standing on splintered wood, your feet bleeding, while he gets the VIP treatment. The priest, who barely glanced at you, fusses over him, anointing his forehead with oil that smells like actual roses, not the rancid sludge you got. The crowd watches, some women dabbing their eyes, as if his death is a tragedy, not a spectacle. You're just a witch to them, but he's a fallen hero. In a moment, you'll see why his end differs. The executioner unveils a gleaming sword, not a noose. For Lord Fancy, beheading's quick, it's clean, and reserved for those with titles or coin. You've seen hangings drag on, men kicking for minutes while the crowd cheers. Your neck itches at the thought, the noose above you swaying like it's impatient. The noble kneels, his cloak arranged to avoid bloodstains because even in death, appearances matter. You, meanwhile, are a ragged mess. Your shaved head and torn tunic marking you as less than human. Can you guess what's coming next? The priest reads a long prayer for the Lord, full of flourish, while yours was a rushed mutter. The crowd's quieter now, some praying, others craning to see the sword's flash. You wonder what he did treason. Probably, since nobles rarely die for theft. Maybe he backed the wrong king, or plotted against the duke. Whatever it is, his punishment's a performance, not a degradation. You're the lesson for peasants. He's the cautionary tale for the elite. Gruff nudges you, whispering, watch how the rich die, and you hate how his smirk makes you feel smaller. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this divide. The executioner raises the sword, and the crowd holds its breath. You can't look away, even though you want to. The blade's edge catches the sun, a fleeting glint, and you wonder if it's sharper than the shears that took your hair. You think of your sister, praying she's not here, not seeing this world where wealth buys a better death. Medieval justice wasn't just cruel, it was unequal, sparing the highborn the worst humiliations. Your torture, your march, your shaved head, they're for the mob's satisfaction, not some divine balance. If you leave now, you'll miss what his death reveals. The sword descends, and the crowd gasps. A single sharp note. Lord Fancy's head falls, clean and quick, his body slumping onto the cushion. The mob's reaction is muted, more awe than bloodlust. The executioner wipes his blade, and the guards carry the body away, wrapped in cloth, not left for the dogs like yours might be. You're still here, the noose waiting, and the crowd's eyes swing back to you, hungry again. They got their noble tragedy, now they want their peasant horror. You stand, the scaffold creaking, and feel the weight of your common blood. The priest mutters, but he's already moving on. His job with you less important. Gruff tightens the ropes, and Twitch laughs. Your turn soon, witch. The noose sways, and you realize privilege doesn't just buy a better life, it buys a better death. You're not Lord Fancy, with his silk and sword. You're just you, and the scaffold's ready to prove it. The noble's blood still stains the velvet cushion as his body is whisked away, but the crowd's awe shifts back to you, their cheers reigniting like a fire-fed fresh kindling. You're a death row inmate in 1350, a woman on the scaffold, your shaved scalp stinging and your tortured body barely holding up. The noose waits, but the executioner hasn't moved yet, his hooded figure a silent threat. The mob's energy surges, and you realize they're not just watching, they're betting, wagering on your fate like it's a horse race or a tavern brawl. The air crackles with their shouts, thick with the smell of mud, ale, and the brazier's dying embers. The mainstream fact is that medieval executions were often gambling events, with crowds betting on everything from the condemned's last words to the executioner's precision. These wagers turned justice into a sport, with spectators staking coins or goods on the outcome. A quirky tidbit, some bet on whether the prisoner would faint, confess, or even survive a botched execution. Think medieval reality TV with higher stakes. Historians still argue whether this gambling was a way to cope with the grim spectacle or just another layer of cruelty. For you, the crowd's bets are a fresh humiliation, turning your final moments into their game. You stand, ropes cutting into your wrists, the scaffold splinters digging into your feet. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what they're betting on. The executioner adjusts the noose, his hand steady, while Gruff, the burly guard, scans the crowd, his eyes glinting with greed. Twitch, the skinny one, is worse. He's taking bets, weaving through the mob with a sack for coins. You hear shouts of, 2 pennies, she cries, and a groat says she confesses. Your stomach twists. They're not just here for your death. They're profiting from your despair. Don't skip the next part, because it gets wilder. A man in a tattered cloak waves a chicken. Yes, a live chicken as his wager, bartering with a woman who offers a loaf of bread. The crowd's a marketplace, haggling over your fate like it's a pig at auction. You spot a boy, barely 10, shouting odds on whether you'll scream, his voice shrill with excitement. Medieval executions weren't just punishments, they were economies, with your pain as the currency. You'd laugh at the absurdity if the noose weren't so close, its shadow creeping across the scaffold like a thief. In a moment, you'll see why their bets hurt. Twitch returns, jingling his sack, and grins at you. Good money on you fainting. Witch. You're not a witch, but the label sticks, and the crowd's bets make it real. You try to stand taller, defiance flickering, but your legs shake from hunger and pain. The priest, his cross still raised, mutters prayers, but he's a sideshow now. The real stars are the betters, their coins and chickens fueling the spectacle. You notice a woman in a fine dress, betting a silver ring on your silence. She thinks you're too proud to beg. You hate that. She might be right. Can you guess what's coming next? A drunk stumbles forward, shouting. 5 to 1, she curses the king. The crowd roars, and you wonder if they'd cheer louder for a curse than a confession. Your crime may be theft, maybe heresy is just a story they've spun, and their bets are writing the ending. You think of the dungeon's rats, The boiling water, the shaved head, each a step in this cruel game. The executioner's stillness is a contrast to the mob's frenzy, his hooded gaze fixed on you, waiting for the signal. You wish you could bet on yourself, on surviving this somehow, but hope's a coin you spent long ago. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this gambling. The crowd's bets aren't just about money, they're about control, turning your fear into their sport. You spot a merchant, his apron stained with flour, betting a sack of grain that you'll faint before the drop. He's not even looking at you. Too busy arguing odds with a neighbor, you're not a person to them, just a marker in their game, like the noble whose head rolled minutes ago. But where his death was a tragedy, yours is a circus, and the bets reflect that crude, loud, and merciless. If you leave now, you'll miss what these wagers mean. You think of your sister, praying she's not here, not hearing her name tied to your shame. Medieval executions didn't just kill, they branded families, and these bets will make your story a tavern tale for years. The executioner steps closer, his boots thudding, and the crowd shouts peak, coins changing hands faster now. Twitch yells, last bets, you lot, and the mob surges, their excitement a living thing. You want to scream that you're more than their game, but the noose's weight silences you. The priest's prayers falter, drowned by the betting frenzy. You're alone on this creaking stage. The scaffold's wood, your only anchor. The executioner checks the trap door, his hands precise, and you realize the bets aren't just on you. They're on him, too. Will he make it quick, or will you dangle, kicking for their amusement? The crowd's coins clink, their voices a wall of noise, and you know this game's almost over. The noose waits, and the bets are in. You're about to find out who wins. The crowd's bets echo in your ears, their coins and chickens wagered on whether you'll cry, confess, or curse before the noose tightens. You're a death row inmate in 1350, a woman on the scaffold, your shaved scalp exposed, your body battered from torture and the march. The executioner's hooded figure looms, his hand steady on the trapdoor's lever, but he pauses, giving the mob one last moment to savor your fear. Now, they turn to you, shouting for your final words, a chance to confess, beg, or defy before the drop. The air is thick with their anticipation, laced with the scent of mud, ale, and the scaffold's splintered wood. The mainstream fact is that medieval prisoners were often allowed to speak before execution, a ritual meant to offer repentance or reinforce the justice of their sentence. These last words were public, recorded by scribes or remembered in local lore, shaping the condemned's legacy. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners used their final moments to crack jokes or insult the crowd, turning the scaffold into a stage for defiance. Imagine a medieval mic drop. Historians still argue whether these speeches were genuine expressions or coerced performances to satisfy the mob. For you, this moment is a knife's edge, and every word counts. You stand, ropes biting your wrists, the noose's shadow cold on your neck. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what they expect you to say. The executioner steps back, his silence a signal, and Gruff, the burly guard, nudges you forward, growling, "Speak, witch." The crowd leans in, their faces a blur of hunger and scorn. Some want tears, others a curse, anything to fuel their bets. Your throat's dry as the dungeon straw, and your voice feels like it's been stolen, just like your hair. The priest, cross raised, nods, urging repentance, but his eyes say this is for the mob, not God. Don't skip the next part, because it gets raw. You open your mouth, and a croak escapes, barely audible. The crowd jeers, a woman shouting, louder, "Harlot." You're not a harlot, not a witch, but their labels stick like the mud they threw. You think of your crime, maybe stealing bread, maybe a whispered defiance, and wonder if confessing would quiet them. You've seen others beg, their pleas met with laughter, or proclaim innocence, only to be mocked. The scaffold's wood creaks, and you shift, splinters pricking your feet. You're not sure you have the strength to speak, but silence feels like surrender. In a moment, you'll see why your words matter. You clear your throat, forcing out, "I'm no witch." The crowd roars, some cheering, others booing, as if you've cheated their expectations. A man yells, "Confess and be saved," but you're not sure if he means your soul or their bets. Medieval last words weren't just personal, they were political, shaping how you'd be remembered or forgotten. You think of your sister, hoping she's not here, not hearing you branded as a sinner. You want to say something for her, something true, but the mob's noise swallows your courage. Can you guess what's coming next? You try again, louder. "I stole to live." It's a half-truth, maybe closer to the mark than you'd admit. The crowd's reaction splits, some jeer, others nod, as if hunger's a crime they know too well. The priest shakes his head, muttering about repentance, but the executioner's stillness draws your eye. His hooded gaze is unreadable, but he's listening, waiting. You wonder if he's heard every plea, every curse, and if any of it matters to him. The noose sways, and you realize these words are your last chance to be more than a wager, more than a witch. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this moment. You scan the mob, searching for a kind face, but find only greed and judgment. A boy waves a coin, betting you'll cry, and you want to prove him wrong, but tears prick your eyes anyway. You think of the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, the shaved head, each a theft of your humanity. You could curse them all, the crowd, the guards, the priest, but what's the point? Your words won't change the rope. You try one last time, your voice breaking. "Tell my sister I'm sorry." The crowd quiets, just for a second, before erupting again, some mocking, others betting on your tears. If you leave now, you'll miss what these words cost. The executioner steps forward, his boots heavy, and you know time's running out. Your words, frail as they are, feel like a small rebellion, a claim to who you were before this scaffold. The crowd doesn't care, they want drama. Not truth, but you've said something for yourself, for your sister. The priest raises his cross, his prayers louder, as if to drown your defiance. Gruff tightens the ropes, and Twitch laughs. "Nice speech, witch." The noose waits, and you realize your words, however small, are the last thing you own. You stand, the scaffold creaking, and feel the crowd's eyes like 1,000 needles. You've spoken, but it's not enough to save you. Not from the rope, not from their bets. The executioner's hand rests on the lever, and the mob's cheers swell, sensing the end. Your sister's face flashes in your mind, and you hope she'll hear your apology. Not the crowd's lies. The noose's shadow falls, and you brace for what comes next. Your words, a fleeting spark in the darkness. Your final words, "Tell my sister I'm sorry," hang in the air, briefly silencing the crowd's jeers before their bets and shouts surge back, louder than ever. You're a death row inmate in 1350. A woman on the scaffold, your shaved scalp raw, your body broken from torture in the march. The executioner's hand rests on the trapdoor's lever, his hooded gaze unreadable, and the noose above you sways like a grim metronome. Now, the moment arrives, the method of your execution, chosen to match your crime real or invented, and the crowd's thirst for spectacle. The air is thick with their roars, mingled with the scent of mud, ale, and the scaffold's weathered wood. The mainstream fact is that medieval executions varied by crime and status, with hanging the most common method for commoners, while beheading was reserved for nobles, and burning or drowning often used for witchcraft or heresy. Each method was a public ritual, designed to deter and entertain. A quirky tidbit, executioners sometimes used test ropes on animals to ensure the noose wouldn't break. Imagine a cow taking one for the team before the big show. Historians still argue whether these methods were chosen for justice or to maximize crowd satisfaction. For you, the noose's coarse fibers are all too real, and the crowd's waiting to see how you'll meet your end. You stand, ropes cutting into your wrists, the scaffold creaking under your weight. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what this rope promises. The executioner steps closer, his boots thudding, and loops the noose around your neck. Its weight heavier than you expected, like a stone pulling you toward the earth. The crowd cheers, their bets on your tears or screams fueling the frenzy. Gruff, the burly guard, stands nearby, smirking, while Twitch, the skinny one, jingles his sack of wager coins, shouting, "Here's the witch's dance." You're not a witch, but the label's stuck, and the rope's about to make it permanent. Don't skip the next part, because it gets grim. The noose scratches your skin, its fibers coarse as the dungeon straw. You've seen hangings before, men kicking, faces purple, the crowd laughing like it's a saint's feast, hangings cheap and quick, perfect for a commoner like you, accused of theft or heresy or whatever the mob decided. You pray for a clean snap, but you've heard of botch jobs, where the rope's too long, and the condemned strangle slowly, legs flailing for minutes. The executioner's hands are steady, but that's no comfort. You wonder if he's tested this rope, or if you're the test. In a moment, you'll see why this method terrifies. You glance at the crowd, their faces a sea of greed and thrill. A woman bets a hen you'll confess again. A man wagers you'll faint. You want to prove them wrong, but your knees wobble, and the noose's tug makes breathing hard. The priest, his cross still raised, mutters prayers, but they're for the mob souls, not yours. Medieval executions weren't just about death, they were about display, and hanging's the crowd's favorite show, messy, dramatic, and cheap. You're not getting the noble sword like Lord Fancy, you're getting the peasant's rope, and it's personal. Can you guess what's coming next? The executioner checks the trap door, stomping to test its give, and the scaffold shudders, sending a jolt through your spine. You think of the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, your shaved head, each a step to this rope. You've heard of other methods, burning for witches, drowning for adulterers, or the traitor's horror of being drawn and quartered. You're lucky, if you can call it that. Hanging standard, but standard doesn't mean kind. The crowd's bets spike, their voices a wall of noise, and you realize they're not just betting on you, they're betting on the rope's performance. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this noose. You try to breathe, but the rope's already tight, a preview of what's coming. You think of your sister, hoping she's not here, not seeing you reduced to this. Medieval executions didn't just end lives, they rewrote them, turning you into a cautionary tale for others. The executioner's calm is unnerving, his hands adjusting the knot like a tailor fitting a dress. You wonder if he's done this so often it's routine, or if he feels the weight of your life in his fingers. The crowd doesn't care. They want the drop, the kick, the end. If you leave now, you'll miss what this rope reveals. You scan the mob, searching for a kind face, but find only excitement. A boy waves a coin, betting you'll scream. and you clench your jaw, determined to deny him. The priest's prayers falter, drowned by the crowd's chants of, "Hang her." You're not sure if you're more afraid of the rope or the legacy it'll leave a witch, a thief, forever in their stories. The executioner's hand tightens on the lever, and the trapdoor's creak is a warning. The noose grips your neck, and you know the next moment will decide everything: life, death, or something worse. You stand, the scaffold trembling, and feel the crowd's eyes like 1,000 weights. Your words to your sister were your last defiance, but they're gone now, lost in the mob's roar. The executioner's stillness is a countdown, and you brace for the drop, praying for speed, for mercy, for anything but the crowd's laughter. The noose waits, and you're out of time. The noose scratches your neck, its coarse fibers a constant reminder of the trapdoor beneath you. But the executioner's hand stills on the lever, letting the crowd's chants hang her build to a fever pitch. You're a death row inmate in 1350, a woman on the scaffold, your shaved scalp exposed, your body broken from torture and betrayal. The drop hasn't come yet, but when it does, your story doesn't end with the rope. The aftermath of your execution, what happens to your body and your name, will send a message to the living, etched in blood and memory. The air hums with the mob's anticipation, heavy with the scent of mud, ale, and the scaffold's splintered wood. The mainstream fact is that medieval executions didn't conclude with death. The treatment of the condemned's body was a deliberate act, often displayed to deter others or reinforce social order. Bodies were left hanging, gibbeted or dismembered, with heads spiked on gates or limbs sent to villages as warnings. A quirky tidbit. Some towns sold execution relics, rope scraps, or clothing as grim souvenirs, like medieval merch for the morbidly curious. Historians still argue whether these displays were effective deterrents or just fueled public bloodlust. For you, the thought of what comes after is as heavy as the noose itself. You stand, ropes biting your wrists, the scaffold creaking under your trembling legs. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what they'll do with you. The executioner's hooded gaze is fixed, his hand steady, but the crowd's eyes are elsewhere on a cart nearby, where a pile of chains and stakes waits. Your stomach lurches. They're not just planning to hang you and walk away. The priest, his cross glinting, mutters prayers, but his voice is drowned by a man shouting, "Spike her head for the gate. You're not even gone." And they're already carving up your legacy. Don't skip the next part, because it gets gruesome. You glance at the cart, spotting iron gibbets cages for bodies, left to rot in public view. You've seen them before, swinging from town walls, bones picked clean by crows while children played below. If you're lucky, they'll just leave you hanging until nightfall, a warning for the village. If not, your body might be chopped up, your head sent to the Lord's castle, your limbs to nearby towns. Medieval justice didn't stop at death. It used your corpse to preach obedience. You pray they'll bury you, but burial's for the penitent, not witches like you. In a moment, you'll see why your body's fate matters. The crowd's bets haven't stopped some wager on whether you'll be gibbeted, others on how long you'll hang before the rope's cut. A woman waves a coin, betting your head goes to the bridge, and you hate how her casual cruelty makes you feel like meat. Gruff, the burly guard, laughs, good coin in her bones, while Twitch jingles his sack, still collecting. The executioner's silence is a contrast. His hands adjusting the noose with a craftsman's care. You wonder if he cares what happens after, or if his job ends with a drop. Can you guess what's coming next? You think of your sister, hoping she's not here, not hearing these plans for your remains. Medieval executions didn't just kill, they erased, turning you into a symbol of sin. Your body won't rest in a churchyard. It'll be a prop, a lesson for others to fear. You've seen heads on pikes, their eyes pecked out, and the thought makes your knees buckle. Gruff catches you, not kindly, muttering, "Stand, witch." You're not a witch, but the crowd's decided, and their bets on your corpse prove it. The news tightens, a preview of the end. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this aftermath. The crowd's not just here for your death, they're here for what comes next. The display that'll linger in their minds. You spot a merchant selling rope scraps, his stall thriving as if this were a fair. Your execution's a business, your body a commodity. You think of the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, your shaved head, each a step to this moment, where even death isn't yours. The priest's prayers falter, his cross a hollow gesture. He's not praying for your soul. He's sanctifying the mob's justice, ensuring your body serves their purpose. If you leave now, you'll miss what this display means. The executioner steps closer, his boots heavy, and checks the trapdoor's hinge. Its creak a warning. You wonder if your body will hang here, swaying for days, or if they'll cart it off to a gibbet. Your bones, a roadside attraction. You pray for your sister, hoping she'll escape the shame tied to your name. The crowd's cheers spike, sensing the drop is near, and you realize your death isn't the end. It's the beginning of a story they'll tell, twisted to fit their needs. The noose grips your neck, and you brace for the fall, knowing your body will speak long after you're gone. You stand, the scaffold trembling, and feel the mob's eyes like 1,000 brands. Your words to your sister were your last defiance, but they're dust now, lost in the crowd's hunger. The executioner's hand tightens on the lever, and the trapdoor's groan is a death knell. The noose waits, and you know what comes after your body. A tool for their fear, your name, a curse in their tales. The crowd roars, and you're out of time. The noose digs into your neck. The scaffolds creak, a grim underscore to the crowd's roars, but the executioner's hand still hovers over the lever, drawing out the tension like a bard milking a tale. You're a death row inmate in 1350, a woman battered by torture, your shaved scalp stinging, your body barely holding up. The crowd bets on your screams, your body's fate already a commodity. But beyond the mob, your thoughts turn to those you'll leave behind, your family, stained by your shame. The aftermath of your execution won't just end with you, it'll ripple through their lives. A curse they didn't choose. The air is heavy with mud, ale, and the mob's fevered chants. The mainstream fact is that medieval executions often imposed social penalties on the families of the condemned, who faced ostracism, loss of property, or even suspicion of complicity. This taint could last generations, especially for serious crimes like treason or witchcraft. A quirky tidbit: in some towns, families paid priests to pray for the condemned soul, hoping to lessen the stigma, like buying indulgences for a bad reputation. Historians still argue whether this social shunning was a deliberate tool to enforce conformity or an organic byproduct of community fear. For you, the thought of your sister bearing this burden cuts deeper than the rope. You stand, the noose's weight pulling at your throat, the scaffold splinters biting your feet. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what your family faces. The executioner's hooded gaze is fixed, his silence a wall, while Gruff, the burly guard, leers at the crowd, and Twitch jingles his betting coins. The priest's prayers drone on, his cross a prop for the mob's conscience. You scan the faces below, praying your sister's not among them. Her eyes spared this horror. The crowd's chants, "Witch hang her," are a reminder that your name's already a slur, and your family will carry it like a scar. Don't skip the next part, because it gets heavier. You think of your sister's pale face when you were dragged from your hut, the village turning on her as much as you. Medieval society didn't just punish the guilty, it judged their kin, branding them as tainted. If you're a witch, she might be next. Her every move watched for signs of devilry. If it's theft, she could lose the hut, her meager belongings seized to pay the Lord's justice. You've heard of families driven from villages, their children spat on, their names whispered like curses. Your apology from the scaffold feels hollow now. She'll need more than words to survive this. In a moment, you'll see why their shame endures. The crowd's bets shift some wager on whether your family will flee tonight, others on whether they'll beg the priest for mercy. A woman shouts. Her sister's a witch, too, and your heart twists. Fear for her sharper than the nooses bite. You want to scream that she's innocent, but the mob wouldn't listen. They're too busy profiting from your pain. The executioner adjusts the rope, his hand steady, and you wonder if he's seen families ruined before, or if it's just another day's work. The scaffold's creak is a countdown, and you're running out of time to hope. Can you guess what's coming next? You think of your sister's hands, calloused from weaving, her quiet strength. She doesn't deserve this, none of them do. You've seen families shunned, their huts burned, their children turned away from church. Your crime may be theft. Maybe heresy is a chain around her neck now, too. The priest's prayers falter, his cross glinting, but he's not praying for your family. He's sanctifying the mob's verdict. Gruff mutters, her kin'll learn to keep quiet, and you hate how his words ring true. Medieval justice wasn't just about you. It was about control, keeping everyone in line. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this legacy. You spot a man in the crowd, his face familiar, a neighbor who once shared bread with you. Now, he's betting on your screams, his eyes cold. Your family will face this betrayal. 2. Their ties to you, a stain no prayer can wash away. You think of the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, your shaved head, each a step to this moment where your death becomes their burden. The crowd's not just here for you. They're here to reinforce the rules, to remind everyone what happens when you step out of line. Your sister's life, already hard, is about to get harder. If you leave now, you'll miss what this shame costs. The executioner's hand tightens on the lever, and the trapdoor's groan sends a shiver through you. You pray your sister finds a way to escape this taint, maybe by leaving the village, starting fresh where no one knows your name. But medieval communities were tight-knit, gossip spreading faster than plague. The crowd's cheers swell, their bets on your family's fate as loud as those on your death. The noose grips tighter, and you realize your execution isn't just yours, it's theirs, too. A wound they'll carry long after you're gone. The noose's coarse grip tightens with every breath. The scaffolds creak, a grim heartbeat as the crowd's chants for your death swell. You're a death row inmate in 1350, a woman battered by torture, your shaved scalp raw, your family doomed to carry your shame. The executioner's hand rests on the lever, his hooded silence deafening. But another figure holds sway over this moment, the priest, his cross glinting as he steps forward. His prayer's a reminder that the church isn't just a bystander, it's a puppeteer in this brutal theater of justice. The air is thick with mud, ale, and the mob's restless hunger, their bets on your screams and your family's ruin still echoing. The mainstream fact is that the Catholic Church played a central role in medieval justice, shaping laws, trials, and executions, often acting as both moral arbiter and enforcer. Clergy blessed scaffolds, administered last rites, and ensured punishments aligned with divine will, especially for crimes like heresy or witchcraft. A quirky tidbit. Some priests doubled as execution consultants, advising on holy methods like burning for witches to purify the soul through pain. Historians still argue whether the church's involvement was about spiritual salvation or consolidating power over a fearful populace. For you, the priest's presence is a chain as heavy as the noose, binding your fate to his authority. You stand, the scaffold splinters digging into your feet, the rope's weight pulling at your neck. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by what he controls. The priest raises his cross higher, his Latin prayers cutting through the crowd's jeers like a blade. His robe, frayed but imposing, marks him as God's voice, and the mob quiets, some kneeling, others clutching rosaries. Gruff, the burly guard, shifts uneasily, while Twitch, the skinny one, stops jingling his betting coins, as if the priest's gaze could damn him, too. The executioner waits, his hand still, deferring to this holy man's command. Don't skip the next part, because it gets deeper. The priest turns to you, his eyes cold as the dungeon stone, and demands a final confession. Repent, sinner, he says, loud enough for the crowd to hear, or burn in eternal fire. You're not sure if he means hell or the stake. Both are real threats for a witch like you. Your crime, maybe theft or a whispered defiance, is irrelevant. The church sees you as a stain to be cleansed. You've seen heretics burned, their screams mingling with prayers, the crowd cheering as if God himself applauded. You croak, "I'm no witch," but he shakes his head, unimpressed. In a moment, you'll see why his power terrifies. The priest's not just here for your soul. He's here to justify the execution, to make the mob feel righteous. Medieval justice leaned on the church to sanctify its violence, turning your death into a sermon. You think of your sister, hoping she's not here, not hearing this man brand you a devil. The crowd's bets shift some wager you'll confess now. Others that you'll curse God, a woman shouts. Send her to hell, and you realize the priest's words have lit a fire in them, one that'll burn your family's name, too. The noose feels tighter, a reminder of what's at stake. Can you guess what's coming next? The priest steps closer, splashing holy water that stings your raw scalp like salt in a wound. His prayers grow louder, invoking divine judgment, and you wonder if he believes you're damned, or if this is just his job. You've heard of priests sparing souls with a last-minute pardon, but that's for nobles, not you. The church's power isn't mercy, it's control, deciding who's saved, who's burned, who's forgotten. Gruff mutters, "Say something, witch," but your voice is gone, swallowed by the rope's grip and the priest's unyielding stare. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about his role. You think of the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, your shaved head, each a step in this church-sanctioned dance. The priest's cross is a scepter, ruling the crowd as much as you. He's not just praying, he's directing, ensuring your death serves the church's narrative, sin punished, order restored. The crowd's cheers soften, some crossing themselves, as if your execution is their salvation. You spot a boy, eyes wide, learning this lesson defy the church, and the scaffold waits. Your sister's face flashes in your mind, and you pray she escapes this holy wrath. If you leave now, you'll miss what his prayers cost. The executioner's hand twitches on the lever, but he's waiting for the priest's nod, a sign that God's will aligns with the mob's. The holy water drips down your face, mixing with sweat, and you feel marked, not saved. The priest's voice rises, calling you a sinner, and the crowd roars, their bets on your damnation louder now. You're not just a woman, not just a thief or heretic. You're a sacrifice, and the church is the blade. The noose tightens, and you know the drop is near, blessed by the very cross that condemns you. You stand, the scaffold trembling, and feel the mob's eyes like 1,000 sermons. Your words to your sister were your last defiance, but they're ashes now, burned by the priest's judgment. The executioner's stillness is a clock winding down, and you brace for the fall, knowing the church's shadow will linger over your family long after the rope snaps. The noose waits, and you're out of prayers. The priest's prayers fade, his cross still raised, but the crowd's chants swell again. A tidal wave of hang her that drowns out everything else. You're a death row inmate in 1350. A woman on the scaffold, your shaved scalp raw, your body broken by torture, march, and betrayal. The executioner's hand grips the lever, his hooded gaze a void, and the noose around your neck feels like it's already stealing your breath. This is it, the final moment, where your story becomes a medieval legend, a warning carved in the crowd's memory. The air is thick with mud, ale, and the mob's bloodlust, their bets on your screams and your family's shame ringing in your ears. The mainstream fact is that executed criminals in medieval Europe often became part of local folklore, their stories twisted into tales of sin or defiance to teach obedience or entertain tavern crowds. Names and crimes were exaggerated, turning thieves into devils or heretics into martyrs. A quirky tidbit: some towns named streets or gates after infamous executions, like Hangman's Lane, keeping the condemned's shadow alive for centuries. Historians still argue whether these legends were deliberate propaganda or organic myths born from communal storytelling. For you, the scaffold is your final stage, and the crowd's ready to write your epilogue. You stand, the noose's fibers biting, the scaffold's creak a death knell. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how they'll remember you. The executioner's hand tightens, and the trapdoor groans, ready to drop. Gruff, the burly guard, smirks, while Twitch jingles his betting coins, shouting, "She'll scream." You're not a witch, not a harlot, but their labels are your epitaph. The priest steps back, his prayers done, his cross glinting like a judge's gavel. The crowd's faces blur men, women, children, all here to see you fall, their bets a final theft of your humanity. Don't skip the next part, because it's haunting. You think of your sister, your last words to her. I'm sorry, now lost in the mob's roar. She'll hear your story, twisted by tavern tales, the witch who cursed the village, or the thief who damned her kin. Medieval legends didn't care for truth. They cared for drama. You've seen it before: a neighbor, hanged for poaching, turned into a devil who haunted the woods. Your name will be a curse, your family shunned, your grave if you get one unmarked. The noose tightens, and you wonder what myth they'll make of you. In a moment, you'll see why your story endures. The crowd's bets spike, some wagering on your last gasp, others on whether your ghost will haunt the square. A woman shouts, "Burn her soul," as if the rope's not enough. You want to scream your truth: "I stole to live. I love my sister," but the noose chokes your voice. The executioner's stillness is a countdown, his hand steady on the lever. You think of the dungeon's rats, the boiling water, your shaved head, each a step to this myth-making moment. The mob's not just killing you, they're birthing a legend, one that'll outlive you. Can you guess what's coming next? You scan the crowd, searching for a kind face, but find only greed. A boy, clutching a coin, bets you'll faint, and you clench your jaw, defying him. The priest's cross catches the sun, a final taunt, and you wonder if God's watching or if this is all for the church's power. Your sister's face flashes again, and you pray she'll escape this story. Find a place where your name isn't poison, The scaffold trembles, the noose pulls, and you know your death will be a tale told over ale, your truth buried with you. In 3 minutes, a strange truth emerges about this legacy. The executioner's hand moves, the lever clicks, and the trapdoor drops. The world falls away. The rope snaps tight, and darkness rushes in. But your story doesn't end here. The crowd will carry it home, spinning tales of the witch who defied the noose, or the thief whose ghost haunts the square. Your sister will hear it, her life shaped by whispers of your shame. The church will preach it, the mob will embellish it, and your name will linger, a warning or a curse, in the village's memory. If you leave now, you'll miss what your legend becomes. Your body, maybe gibbeted or spiked, will fade, but the story won't. You'll be the witch of Hangman's Lane, the sinner who taught the village fear. The crowd's cheers echo as you slip away, their bets paid, their tale begun. You're gone, but your legacy twisted, cruel, eternal lives on, a medieval myth born from a noose and a mob's hunger. Now, let's ease away from the scaffold shadow, the crowd's roar fading like a distant storm. Picture yourself drifting, weightless, above the muddy square, the noose and its weight gone. The air softens, carrying the scent of fresh earth, not ale or blood. You're no longer bound by ropes or mob's chants. You're free, floating under a quiet sky, stars blinking gently above. The village sleeps, its stories tucked into tavern corners, and your sister, somewhere, dreams of brighter days. The medieval world, harsh and unyielding, slips away, its lessons left to history's pages. Feel your breath slow, your body lighten, as the night wraps you in its calm embrace. Let the scaffold's creak become a distant memory, replaced by the hum of a fan, the softness of your bed. Rest now, safe in the present, where no ropes bind you, no crowds judge. Drift deeper, and let sleep carry you gently. Sweet dreams.